We call to order the Colerain Township Zoning Commission. It's a regular meeting, Tuesday, May the 17th, 2022. Would ask if everybody would stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Alec, could we have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Fearing.
Here.
Mr. Gehring.
Here.
Ms. Smith.
Here.
Ms. McMullen.
Here.
Mr. Grody.
Here. All members of the commission are present this evening, and the minutes will reflect that next month. Before we begin our agenda, a word of welcome to all who are here this evening. We are glad that you could make it and that you have an interest in the matters at hand this evening. And as I usually do, I extend a word of welcome to all who are viewing us on closed circuit TV this evening or in delayed fashion, whichever it may be. We ask everyone to please silence their electronic devices, telephones and so on and so forth, so it does not interrupt with the video services. And commissioners and staff, if you'll double check and make sure that your microphones are on, please. The first order of business is to review and approve the minutes for January the 18th, 2022. Commissioners, if you would take a look at those, and are there any changes that are necessary?
Yes, just one typo that I found. On page 4, the hearing no request for further discussion sentence, it says that I made a motion to close the potion. Can you change that to portion, please?
I sure can.
It's like
only one
witchcraft.
typo.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Was that of January's, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Alleg, on page 5, under announcements, it doesn't seem like the sentence finishes itself.
Okay.
There is a period there, but in the coming, what?
I apologize.
Okay, what should be there?
In the coming year.
Year.
That's by the end of this year. It was.
I don't know if that's significant to make that change, but
Definitely would be. I'll, with your permission, correct all those mistakes and then resubmit them next month. If that's okay with you, or would you like me just to correct them, have you sign them, and
I
just post
can,
them?
we'll talk after the
Yes, sir.
meeting.
Thank you.
Get it straightened out. Okay, commissioners, any other changes or notations? Hearing none, I'd like to have a motion for approval of the January the 18th meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the January 18th, 2022.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve these minutes. Mr. Alleg, could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Fearing?
Abstain.
Mr. Gehring?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. McMullen?
Yes.
Mr. Grody?
Abstain. Okay. The next item is to take a look at the March 15th, 2022 minutes. See if there are any changes that need to be made there or additions or what have you.
I have no changes.
Commissioners, any other comments? Hearing none, could we please have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from February.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Alleg, could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Fearing?
Yes.
Mr. Gehring?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. McMullen?
Yes.
Mr. Grody?
Yes. Thank you, Commissioners. The next item of business is our public address. This is the time where we ask anyone present this evening who would like to address the commission about any item that is not on the agenda. So do we have anyone who would like to address the commission? Hearing none and seeing no one standing up, we will consider that as a closed matter. Okay, moving on to our public hearings. Our first case is ZA 2022-03. This is a major amendment to ZA 2005-003 and ZA 2007-001. Mr. Alec, do we have a staff presentation?
I do, sir. For case numbered ZA 2022-03, it is a major amendment to an FTP. A little bit of a unique case because it's affecting property that's in two separate final development, plan developments. One being, as mentioned, 2005-003, the initial Stone Creek. The secondary one being ZA 2007-001, Stone Creek Phase 2. Both of which, both plan developments have different conditions placed upon them. The applicant was Mr. Scott Huber with Abercrombie and Associates, and Stone Creek Retail LLC is who's listed as the owner of the property. Most people are familiar, I believe, with where Stone Creek is, but just in case, on the map, the red star there, pretty much right in the heart of Colerain, right off 275 in Colerain, and pretty much the busiest part of the township, one of the busiest parts of the county. Here's just some renderings of the initial like elevations, proposals of the portion of 2005-003. So it wasn't actually called this, but because the secondary part is Phase 2, we'll refer to this as Phase 1 through this meeting. Just some nice renderings to show what the proposed project will look like, in a very great development. Turned out very well. Just sort of overview of what the initial layout was. There've been a few modifications to this. Bob Summerall Tires was moved to join the Junior Anchor store on the top left of the photo. We see it here. Some other small outlot amendments, stuff like that. Overall, the initial development has stayed pretty consistent with the preliminary development plan as it was proposed in 2005. Just sort of an overview, looking a little bit to the south here. As you can see, a portion of what will be looking at will be, this is Starbucks right here. Here's your Lazy Boy, and there's a medical office, some small retailers in here. And then also back here, this will be Best Buy. So at the top left of the photo, I believe there's a dentist office and I believe a salon in this area. And then, of course, these larger areas are fairly well known. Here's the initial site plan as listed in 2005, the preliminary development plan that our office has on file. Just to zoom in on the portion of 2005-003 that'll be of primary interest to us this evening. Right here, roughly, is where Starbucks exists now. So you can see the initial layout was pretty much completely parking there. And that little out parcel, I don't believe, was owned in the initial portion of this, but was added later to this project. This is a view to sort of capture case ZA 2007-001. So now we're moving on to sort of Phase 2. We have a vacant parcel right here. We have Best Buy right here. And again, this is the other side of the dentist office and salon right there. Here was the initial preliminary development plan submitted to our office. It was slightly revised and presented as this. Here, a particular interest for tonight's hearing, you'll notice that the entire development is one single parcel at this point. Here's what is proposed by the applicant. It would be technically, I believe it looks like there's going to be a creation of, as everything exists now, as one lot would be created. We have parcel C up here. They're splitting this parcel B off of the larger parcel that exists now and combining two parcels right here. As it stands right now, if you follow on the screen, so a laser pointer, right in here, a lot split was approved in 2011 by our office that it's staff's present opinion that either I at least cannot find any documentation that a major amendment was made on there, but that appears to be in opposition to what the Board of Trustees approved for 2007-001 in the list of conditions, being that all lots would be consolidated. The current proposal is to create 4 parcels, or affects 4 parcels overall. It would be an almost 3-acre parcel labeled Parcel A, Parcel B being just over 1 acre, Parcel C not quite even half an acre, and then Parcel D being almost just over 11.5 acres. This would be a sort of close-up picture of A and B here. So A being Best Buy. The applicant is proposing to split off B over here to split from the development, the dentist's office, and I believe it's a salon in there. I'm sure I'll be corrected later on if it's not. And then also in here, it's not identified what the resulting acreage of this would be, but this is a proposed combination. And this portion over here on the west part of this plot plan would be 2005-003, so the initial Stone Creek Phase 1. And then this outlot right here is the existing, is I believe, a parcel that should not have been approved as a split, but here, this exists in 2007-001, so Phase 2. So here you'd be merging Phase 1 and Phase 2, which is a whole unique animal in itself. And nothing's been identified as listed as to what conditions would be applied to which or how that would go. Parcel C up here is where the Starbucks is currently located. Like I said, so about 3/10 of an acre, just over 3/10. Very small, I think is all to say on that. Whereas right now, this current property line right here does not exist. So that's really this property line right here that's being proposed to make this split happen. And then this is just to reflect that Parcel D is the larger surrounding acre that right now does encompass that Starbucks. So they'd be splitting off Parcel D, and then this would be the resulting acreage of Parcel D there, as listed on this. Again, sort of a big focus of all this, regardless of any outcome of this, would be addressing this lot combination. I'm not sure exactly what the protocol would be. We haven't really seen anything presented to our office as far as what would be considered one way or the other. So big kind of question mark on that one. As it's currently proposed, Parcel A would exist there. These are rough calculations I did using cages, so it's nothing quite exact, but I believe close enough to get us within range. It would require a 10% variance to the impervious lot coverage. Parcel B would be at 13%, Parcel C would be at 5%, and Parcel D would be at 9%. This is all to Table 8-2, our site development standards, is listed in Article 8. Additionally, with regards to Parcel C, given that it appears to be such a small parcel, I include this in here to show that even at our smallest, our most minimal lot area required for any parcel in a B district would be B1. The minimum lot area is 20,000 square feet. The current proposed lot at 15,220 square feet would require almost a 4,800 square foot variance to the minimum lot area in a B1 neighborhood district. And then sort of as a caveat to that, along the Colerain corridor, directly on Colerain, as this lot does sit directly on Colerain, there are no existing B1 zoned parcels, fairly because, Colerain being an intense use, B2 being more of an intense use, B1 is generally not appropriate for a thoroughfare like that. So really, in consideration, it's staff's opinion, you'd be really applying the variance to a B2 lot as it would be, because generally any type of use coming in after that, it could be somewhat safely assumed would be a B2 type use. And in that case, a 28,340 square foot variance would be required to the 1 acre requirement of a B2 zone parcel. Additionally, regarding Parcel C, the proposed parking on the site plan listed indicates 7 spaces. Getting to table 13-1, going through it, is Starbucks being a restaurant, which I guess, you could sort of argue that in a sense, but we don't, the closest designation we have in our zoning resolution is restaurant. You need 15 spaces per 1,000 square feet. And then we do have some language in our code where you are allowed 10%, up to 10% reduction by right for parking. And additionally, if you do provide some type of alternative parking scenario, you can receive up to a 50% variance to that. However, as proposed, right now, just to show that if you've ever driven by at any, mildly busy time at Starbucks, you'll notice that not only are all 7 spots here adjacent to the Starbucks fill, but usually you have spillover into this part of the parking lot as well. So as we're looking at this would be just to the west of Starbucks as it stands. This view is looking south. Just to show you sort of the position of the existing building. It's staff's opinion, be very difficult, should Starbucks ever decide to leave there, or something else want to go there, it'd create a very difficult scenario to put a new use in that space. This is a view looking north of the Starbucks as well, just again to indicate, here are the 7 parking spaces. There's usually some type of traffic or parking over there, utilized there. And then as proposed, a variance of 17 parking spaces would be required, even after the 10% reduction would get the applicant down, based on solely on square footage in this case, would get the applicant to 24 parking spaces. So 24 minus 7, if my math is still correct, would get us to 17. So it'd be a variance of 17 parking spaces. And then after the portion of the Starbucks, not the proposed lot split there, not being highly recommended. Additionally, here in the 2007 resolution by the Board of Trustees to approve Phase 2, it does mention that all parcels should be consolidated. Not exactly clear if they're saying that, the existing parcels there that were there prior to this development, and then it has to stay that way. But again, staff's interpretation would be that, regardless of what the intent of that was, as it's written now, a lot split would be in direct conflict to that, which triggers the whole major amendment process, and gets us to this point. This is just sort of an overview. Best Buy in the dentist's office, a little outlets of it. It should be noted this was initially approved as a bank. At one point, it was identified that a 25-foot easement access should be located here. In a later modification, I believe it was in 2009, the bank was approved from a minor amendment to the existing retail sort of strip mall, if you'd call it that. And in that minor amendment, there's no mention of what happened to the easement. That easement was, I believe, recommended per ODOT during the initial 2007 preliminary development plan application process. And again, just to show this patch over here is where the lot split exists now that I'm not certain is supposed to, and also where the 2007 development and the 2005 development would be merged right in here. This is show just getting back to the existing parcel D. There's quite a bit of area there. It's not clear at the moment to staff. I'm sure it'll be made clear later, the reasoning for it. But at this point, I was able to figure out what benefit there was to cut off a 3/10 of an acre roughly, something like that. If you like, I can, but if I don't want to bore anyone too much to death, this is just sort of getting to major amendments, sort of what triggers them, the criteria, that kind of stuff. So really for modification to an approved preliminary final development plan as handled in section 4.57, there's really 3 classifications: administrative, minor, and major. Administrative are very, very basic modifications that are made at my level in the office in there. And they really don't result, or they shall not result in any violation or standard requirement of the resolution, nor create or extend any previously approved variance. So administratively could not approve Lot C as it exists because that would create a variance. Minor modifications are required to become here before the zoning commission. And And they generally, the gist of that would be, it's something much more major than what can be approved at the administrative level, but nothing that's in direct conflict to a Board of Trustees approval condition or any conditions added by the zoning commission in the approval process of either PDP or FDP. Section 4.57, A and 3 get into sort of the exact verbiage of the major modification that triggers this whole case for ZA 2022-03 as well as 04. It does not meet, the above requirements being administrative or minor, and the final proposal being direct conflict with the specific provisions of the approving resolution as adopted by the Board of Township Trustees. Review of the major modifications. Generally, if it's regarding a preliminary or final development plan, it shall require a public hearing, which we're holding now, and not as well as in front of the zoning commission and the Board of Trustees. And then if a preliminary plan is amended, any future final development plan will comply with the amended preliminary development plan. Approval criteria listed in section 4.34. A and B is the overall criteria for any type of zoning amendment. So the amendment is in accordance with the Colerain Township Comprehensive Plan, the Colerain Township Land Use Plan, other adopted plans or policies of the township, and this resolution is adopted by the Board of Township Trustees. And they're not necessarily applicable here, but just to mention it for sake of it, where more than one zoning district is available to implement the comprehensive plan or land use designation, the applicant must justify the particular zoning being sought and show that it is best suited for the specific site based upon the policies of the Colerain Township Comprehensive Plan. Get into criteria for a plan development. So section 9.3.1 lists the purpose of a plan development. So the purpose of it is to allow the flexibility in zoning requirements where the result will be a higher quality development. I believe that's definitely the case with Stone Creek. It seems to be a very high quality development. B, provide for and locate suitable recreational facilities, open space, and other common facilities while preserving the existing landscape to the greatest extent possible. Encourage sound planning principles in the arrangement of buildings, the preservation of open space, the utilization of topography and other site features. Obtain creative and coordinated designs in harmony with surrounding uses and allow procedures supplemental to those applicable in other use districts to establish under which development plans particularly designed to meet the objectives of this section and allow for creative development that conforms to the goals and objectives set forth in the Colerain Township Comprehensive Plan. If that wasn't enough fun, the final part, section 4.5.3, part B, 1 through 8. So it's approval criteria for final development plan. Sort of goes into appropriate arrangements, or maybe the applicant ensure the accomplishment of public improvements and reservation of common open space as indicated on the preliminary development plan and final development plan, if deemed necessary by the Board of Township Trustees during the preliminary development plan approval process. This assurance may require the Board of Township Trustees require a bond to ensure the successful and proper completion of such improvements. Part 2 would be the proposed detailed final development plan for an individual section of the overall PD district is consistent in contents, building location as applicable, land uses, densities and intensities, yard requirements, and area and frontage requirements with the approved preliminary development plan, the Colerain Township Land Use Plan, and the Colerain Township Comprehensive Plan. Parts 3 would be each individual phase of the development can exist as an independent unit that is capable of creating an environment of sustained desirability and stability, or that adequate assurance will be provided that such objective can be obtained. Part 4 would be that any part of the planned development not used for structures, parking, and loading areas or streets shall be landscaped or otherwise improved, or if approved by the zoning commission, left in its natural state. Part 5, that any exception from the design standards provided in the PD district is warranted by the design and amenities incorporated in the detailed final development plan. Almost there, I promise. Part 6, that the internal streets and thoroughfares proposed are suitable and adequate to accommodate the anticipated traffic within and through the development. Part 7, that the detailed final development plan is consistent with the intent and purpose of Article 1 of this resolution. And finally, the final development plan has been transmitted to all their agencies and departments charged with responsibility of review. One last view, the overall plan, approving a lot split of this size, it's going to create this kind of variance and constraints of development in the future. definitely not be recommended. It's my staff's belief, staff's opinion that, as listed in the resolution approving Phase 2, all parcels are supposed to be contiguous and merged, and then if that needs to be changed, again, it's the process to do it. And then finally would be addressing the combination of two parcels into one lot that exists in two separate planned developments. Summary would be multiple variants of the Colerain Township zoning resolution would be necessary for the approval related to Articles 8, that'd be design standards, setbacks, impervious lot coverage, and also lot area. Article 13 would be our parking elements as listed, Table 13-1. And then 14 would be landscaping buffer requirements of any type of yards, anything like that. Any future use of parcel C would likely require a similar variance or the same, going through the same procedure here. And the decision of which conditions merge between ZA 2005-003, so basically Phase 1 of Stone Creek, and then ZA 2007-001, essentially Phase 2 of Stone Creek. Deciding which of those two apply to the what I've identified as the unidentified remainder lot combination for any future development. We would need some type of clarification on that. That leaves us as staff's recommendations for denial of the requested major amendment to ZA 2005-003 and ZA 2007-001. The basis for staff's recommendation is that sections 4.34A, the major amendment is not in accordance with the criteria listed. Section 4.53B, 2, 3, 5, and 6. The proposed major amendment is not, does not meet the listed criteria. And then section 9.31 would be the purpose of the planned district, sort of A through E. The proposed amendment doesn't seem like it's in keeping with best planning practices. That concludes staff's presentation. Sorry for the dryness at times.
Complete your presentation, Mr.
Yes, sir. That is all.
Okay. Commissioners, before we ask the applicant to come forward, any questions, comments, discussion with Mr. Allig?
I just have one now. That green, the grass lot between Best Buy and, I guess that would be, is it J.C. Penney?
Yeah, 4 million. It made Bob Summerall's in there now.
Or yeah, Bob Summerall. Was that originally slated as green space, or is that supposed, was that a lot?
Nope, that was originally designated as a structure to be built at one point in the future.
Can you give us some idea of the size of that spot?
The size is it's now, or the structure that was approved to be there?
As it is now, just the footprint of that particular lot?
I could, sir. If you can just 1 second here. Here's, if you look at the screen, if it's going to zoom in, initially it was a 6,000 square foot business to be built. So, yeah, I believe just slightly over that. If you need a more detailed description of the exact acreage, I can get that for you. But as it was approved, this would be the PDP, the preliminary development plan for Phase 2. That lists a 6,000 square foot structure.
Commissioners, other comments for Mr. Allig?
Oh.
Before we move on, Mr. Bachman, could you do me a favor and grab the speaker sheets outside and bring them forward to Mr. Allig or myself?
Apologize, sir.
Okay. I take it the applicant is represented this evening, Mr. Huber. If you'd like to come forward and state your name, your address, and please spell your name for the purpose of the record.
Yes, good evening. My name is Scott.
Can you turn the mic on, please?
Thank you. My name is Scott Huber, Huber. I'm the site civil engineer with Abercrombie & Associates, 8111 Cheviot Road, Suite 200, 45247.
Okay.
I'm also a registered professional engineer and professional land surveyor registered in the state of Ohio. Thank you for hearing this case tonight. I understand there's a lot to unpack here with the staff report. Obviously, I'm here to ask for approval of the submission. I am aware that staff has recommended denial, but if you give me a chance to tell my story, I would appreciate it, and I think I can clear a lot of this up.
Okay.
First and foremost, I'd like to start about the combinations of the two interior parcels, the one being the green space that we just talked about. Just for the record, I don't know where the combination or consolidation idea came from, but that is not part of my application. When I wrote my application letter, it was strictly just to subdivide the Starbucks property and to subdivide the Best Buy property. There was no mention in my letter of consolidating those two pieces of property. And as far as I'm concerned, you know, they're not part of the application. So I'm not sure where that came from in the staff report, but those are two legal parcels of record, and we're not going to touch them. They're not part of what we're doing here tonight or what my intention was doing. So I just would like to start off with that all of the comments that are regarding those two parcels there, I mean, to me, it's a non-issue because that's not what we're here to do. We're strictly here to cut up Best Buy and cut up Starbucks. Regarding that lot split, I think in the staff report, there was some concern from staff that that lot split is invalid. Again, I'm not sure where that came from, and if the chair would allow me, I'd like to approach the commission and provide some handouts that would help clarify my my position.
That's fine, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
So the first page here, you can see the circle with the 44 on it and the circle with the 336 on it. Those are parcel numbers. And what this document is a survey plat that shows the creation. This is a lot split that was done in 2011 that creates parcel 336. And that is the green space, the grass area that we just talked about. That is parcel 336. So staff's comments that this cut up was invalid, I'm not sure what that is from or why that is, because this plat was recorded in 2011, cutting those out of there. And if you flip over, the next pages are the deeds for both of those parcels, parcel 44 and 336. And if you flip over, you see the limited warranty deed. And then if you flip over to the next page, you see a legal description for parcel A. And just to the left of that, I highlighted it in yellow. It says approved September 21st, 2011, Zoning Commission, Colerain Township, Hamilton County, Ohio. So if you're not familiar with the lot cut up process, us as surveyors, once we write a legal description, our goal in life is to kind of collect all these stamps from all the reviewing agencies, and it lets us record these documents. And the first stop is to get a approval stamp from Colerain Township. That's what we want to do. And as you can see here on parcel A, and as you flip over several more pages back, you see a deed and a legal description for parcel B. You also see an approval stamp from the Colerain Township Zoning Commission. So back in 2011, somebody, I can't remember who it was, if it was us or the owner or somebody, went to the township, and for whatever reason, the township stamped the legal description. That's all I need to do. I mean, I don't know what more you want me to do. And as you see further on down the page, I have some other stamps that we need to obtain down at the bottom of one of those pages, you see a description acceptable by the Hamilton County Engineer and the Tax Map Department. That's a necessary stamp that we need to get. Both of those legal descriptions have that stamp. And if you flip over to the back page, you see a Regional Planning Commission Hamilton County approval stamp. So both of these parcels, parcel 44 and 336, in my opinion, they were created legally. They were created, they have all the validity that one would ever need to seek to create parcels. So I'm not sure why there's a hang up there, because in my opinion, we've done everything we needed to do and we obtained the approval stamps. They got recorded. That's how it got created. So that's my story on the invalid lot split. The other document that I'd like to hand out is regarding the lot consolidation, because I think staff mentioned that was a big driver of why we're doing this major amendment, that there was a concern that the parcels on the Starbucks property weren't consolidated, and I'd like to present evidence of that they were.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So page one is the tax map from 2006. So this was prior to the Best Buy, the Stone Creek 2 zoning case being heard. This is what the parcels looked like in 2006 before Best Buy was a project. So if you flip the page, Abercrombie recorded a consolidation plat in 2007, and you can see there I have highlighted the plat book and the page number 412, page 89, so anybody can go to the recorder's office, look up that plat book and page, and you're going to find this document. And it's a consolidation plat that consolidates all of the parcels that I've shown you on page one that existed in 2006 prior to Best Buy. So I believe that's what the board and the trustees wanted done at that time. They wanted all these interior parcels consolidated and cleaned up before they put Best Buy on there. And if you look at the last page, this is the 2008 tax map, and that's the result of the consolidation survey. You can see all of the parcels have been consolidated. There's no longer any interior parcels that remain. And so in my opinion, that meets the condition that was placed on the project. The condition said to consolidate the parcels that were on record. The condition did not say don't ever subdivide. So I think we met the condition back then, and now we're asking to subdivide, and I don't see that as being a problem, because, like I said, the condition was to consolidate, not to never subdivide it. Staff had several comments about the size of the Starbucks lot. I've been in front of the zoning commission many times, and very recently the zoning board here and also the BZA has approved in a residential form. They've approved they've approved two that I'm aware of, residential subdivisions that have very small lot sizes. This is just a very similar type situation that we want to do in a commercial setting. But, that's the whole reason for having a plan district and going through the plan district process. I think, if you read your design standards for your plan development of 9.3.6, it says right there that the design standards for area, lot coverage, density, yard requirements, parking, landscaping, and screening shall be established in the PD preliminary development plan by the zoning commission and board of trustees. So there really aren't standards when you're in this plan district. The plan is the standard. And so that's why we're here asking you tonight is to approve that. And even though it doesn't meet a B1 or a B2 zone, that's okay because we're in a planned district. And I think this board has the power to approve that. And like I said, I think they have done that in the past in a residential setting that I've been involved in, in the last couple of years. This board has approved very small residential lot sizes. As far as the parking count goes, this whole area has shared parking, it has shared ingress, egress. We're not proposing to remove any parking spaces. We're not adding hard surface or buildings or anything like that. All those easements and agreements, they're still all in play. Just because there's a property line that's going to get put in there doesn't mean that those agreements go away. So there's shared parking agreements that are already established, and they're going to remain established. So I don't see the parking as being an issue. Just a general discussion about the access easement from Best Buy to the J.D. Byrider site to the south. I think staff is correct that did show on the final development plan. There was a easement there to address some concerns from ODOT. To my knowledge, the J.D. Byrider has not asked to access that easement. So I don't know what the advantage would be to them. That easement, as it's currently shown right there, that goes into their inventory lot. So I don't think they would, want to pursue active traffic flow through their inventory lot. But, to my knowledge, that nobody's ever asked for it, but it is shown on the final development plan. I don't know if it's officially been recorded as an access easement, if it's a legal document, but again, nobody has made a request to do that. And I was out there today actually, and I don't see why J.D. Byrider would really want to, just because it would be detrimental to their business flow and their traffic flow. Again, staff had talked about the impervious surface area. We're not adding parking, we're not adding rooftop. That wasn't really in the staff report, so I don't have any numbers with me, but we're not increasing the impervious surface area. It's going to remain the same. All we're doing is putting new property lines down. We're not adding anything. So with that, I think I've addressed the comments that staff has talked about today. I'm available for any questions. I also have with me tonight is Lynn Eddington. She's with Lamar Companies, and Lamar Companies is the real estate agreement manager. And if you have any questions about the easements or the business aspect of what we're doing here, she would be able to answer those questions also.
Okay,
Thank you. That's all I have.
thank you, Mr. Huber. If you'll just stay put for the moment, see if the commissioners have any comments or questions they'd like to address to you before you sit down.
Certainly.
Okay.
Thank you.
I always have comments. My questions are this: if I can start with the Starbucks location. I don't do Starbucks, first off, but I've driven by there many, many times, okay? And the line to get into Starbucks is far beyond the parking lot size that you see here. It impedes onto the parking lot that's in front of it here, in front of the stores, okay? I mean, it backs up there all the time. If we approve a lot size that you've identified there, then the realistic fact is that we could be putting Starbucks out of business, as I see it, because it's nice when everybody's working together. Okay, your neighbors are friends when you're friendly, but if it gets to the point, and sometimes it does, that things aren't so nice, let's say the sleep store or the easy chair store says, I'm getting sick of Starbucks holding up these. So this property line is here, I'm going to put a fence up. We've, in essence, put Starbucks out of business. Can you comment on that?
Yes, I don't exactly agree with that. First off, just because we put a property line in there doesn't mean that we're going to increase or decrease the stacking or the parking requirement for Starbucks, because on the surface, everything's going to look the same. You know, if this thing goes through and we put a property line in there, it's going to function tomorrow the same way that it did today. Now, as far as somebody putting a fence up there, the Lazy Boy or whatever business you said, you know, that's where Lamar comes in, and them being the real estate agreement manager, you know, they're the ones that are going to say, no, you can't do that because there's all these cross-access easements. And if a neighbor, you know, decides that they don't like it, they've already given rights to Starbucks to use the shared parking, so they can't take it away unless Starbucks agrees to it. So, you know, I don't see that as being an issue one way or the other. And the biggest reason is because you have a overseeing management company that's gonna tell them no, that if somebody wants to build a fence there, they can't do it.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but when that becomes a separate parcel, if Starbucks buys it, for instance, okay? Because it's, as a separate parcel, it becomes a saleable entity.
Correct.
And if Starbucks decides to buy that lot and the Lazy Boy store may then have problems with Starbucks owning that piece of property.
Correct.
I don't think anything's going to change tomorrow. I don't think anything's going to change next year. My concern is 5, 7, 9 years out as to what may happen.
You can look at this as Lamar is managing an HOA, right? It's a similar thing, only in a commercial setting. So, you know, if you're in a subdivision or you're in a condo development or whatever, you can have as many owners as you want. You can have different owners as you want. They can agree or disagree or whatever. But the overarching, how do you want to say it, jurisdictional entity is the HOA board, right? They're going to tell two neighbors to say, hey, you can't build that fence there because that's not in the HOA standards. That's what the real estate agreement does. It basically functions as an HOA between all the entities and says, hey, you Lazy Boy, if you build a fence here, you're going to pretty much destroy Starbucks.
Yep.
We're not going to let you do it. So there's a layer of protection
And
there.
your argument is that that's legal, that they'd be able to hold that up in a court of law.
Lynn, would you like to comment on that, or?
Ma'am, excuse me, if you'll come to the podium, please, and state your name, your address, and spell your name for a record, please.
Lynn Eddington, Lynneddington. I represent Lamar Companies, which represents the Stone Creek Retail LLC, owners of the center. My address, business address is 142 Buffalo Road, Suite F, Shepherdsville, Kentucky, 40165.
Thank you.
To address your concerns on real estate agreements, they are carried whenever a property is purchased. So if that property is demised into a separate parcel and it's sold 10 years from now, the easement agreement is an indefinite agreement unless all parties decide to dissolve it. And that would take everybody who's in that agreement. There are restrictions to do certain things we have in that agreement: building standards, cooperation, signing. There are various things that's in that easement agreement. So they can park where they need to park, they have access, but if that parcel is sold, that easement agreement is typically part of that deal.
When you say typically part, what does,
It means that if they don't agree to it, typically the sale does not go through.
okay.
They have to,
suppose the
it's a
sale-
part of.
Where does Colerain Township sit if, let's suppose, Starbucks buys it and Starbucks ends up closing up that shop?
If they end up closing up the shop, the easement agreement stays with the parcel. It does not stay with the owner. It stays with the parcel.
So we've, in essence, got a very small parcel left with not enough parking spaces for the parcel, that sitting idle, that just sits idle unless somebody can sell that parcel, correct?
Correct.
Let me ask you another question, sir. Okay, you show this agreement right here that you passed out. As I look at that, that's both parcels A and parcel B together, correct? What you show is parcel 44?
Parcel 44 is parcel A and B together, yes. So we're
That's correct.
proposing splitting
You want
parcel
to split,
44.
again, B will not have adequate parking, that's the modification you're looking for, correct?
No, I don't think we're looking for a parking modification on parcel B. I think the reason we're here is just because of the condition that says we were to consolidate. I think that's the only reason we're here.
I thought earlier in your presentation, you said there were parking spot modifications for each of these parcels.
No, sir, just for parcel C.
Just the parcel C, so B's got enough parking for its structures.
For the current uses that are there, it does, yes.
Okay.
If a more intense use went in there, that's a very, very large hypothetical, it may not.
Part of my concern is me, okay? I always look to say, why is Stone Creek spending the money, because you don't work for free, I'm sure. Plus maybe you do, okay? Why are they spending the money to basically parcel these up unless they want to do something with these parcels, i.e. sell some of them? And that's fine, but I want to see, I'm representing Colerain Township here. I'm trying to understand what happens if they sell those, and especially the parcel D, okay, that we're showing up here. Now, is on my map, when I look at parcel D, it is an extremely large parcel, stretching around Myers. Okay, so if I were a developer and I buy parcel D and I decide that, listen, I want to come in and build a building on parcel D that's going to eat up 50% of those spots, I still may have enough parking for my new building, but what that does is significantly shrink the number of spots that are available for Myers. So the unintended consequence of that, I guess, would be that we've just approved Meyer or J.C. Penney or whoever to have considerably fewer spots than they would otherwise be required to have.
Again,
See what I'm saying?
I'm not trying to disrespect you or anything, but I don't agree with that, because if a developer were to come in and want to add a building, since this is a planned district, they have to come back in front of everybody and basically start all over again. And at that point, that parking situation would need to be hammered out. So the township and the public are protected just by the basis of the plan.
The planned unit development.
The planned unit development, that if somebody wants to come in and tear down Starbucks and start over, well, that's a major modification, and you're coming through, zoning hearings and needing approval and having to show all this stuff.
Why parcel these out? I mean, the counter argument works just as well. Why parcel them out?
Well, I'm not in the business of real estate, but it's probably to sell it. I mean, let's be honest.
It probably is to sell it.
They want to sell it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that matters, because you have this management company that's overseeing it. They're the HOA of everybody. What difference does it make? It's like you selling a condo. You sell your condo to somebody. Okay, well, the HOA or the condo association is still there. Those rules are still in effect, and they still govern the property. Mm-hmm. So what difference does it make?
Well, you can say I think it's going to make a legal difference, because whoever wants to buy this property is going to do with it what they want. If I buy parcel B, if I'm whatever schmo out there, and I'm not putting them down, I buy parcel B because it's a separate lot, I'm going to break the PUD. I'm going to come in and say, listen, the PUD is no longer in effect legally somehow, okay? And then come in here.
I very highly doubt that would happen. This is all going to be on record. So, if somebody wants to buy Starbucks or parcel B, they're going to know how big or small it is. They're going to know that it's in a planned district. They're going to know what the zoning regulations are. I would highly, highly, highly doubt that somebody could do a legal maneuver and say, this planned district is dissolved and it doesn't apply to us.
Duke property off of Interstate 71 was a planned unit development, and in 1978. I was a senior member of Children's Hospital, okay? And so I worked with Duke to make that a PUD. We installed children's property, building on that property. We subsequently broke the PUD.
I'm not saying it's not possible.
Well, it is possible because we did it.
But that's a huge hurdle. I've been in the business 28 years. I've never seen it done. I've never done it. I mean, I'll defer to staff to give you the validity of that, but to me, that is a monumental task to dissolve a plan development. That would be a very huge task to
It
do
can
that.
be done because obviously we and Duke
Mike,
did it.
I mean, maybe have misspoke a little bit. I'm not saying nothing. You pay these attorneys enough money that they're going to make anything happen. I'm not saying it's never going to happen, but it's highly improbable that
And
that
if
would
a
happen.
hospital or a healthcare provider wants to come in and take one of these parcels, you better believe they're gonna break that PUD in a minute, because they'll talk about the community good, and they'll get away with it. I'm looking from Colerain Township's perspective of why we should go through and allow this to happen. And this is just my personal opinion. I'm having a hard time understanding the benefit for Colerain Township to allow this to happen.
I appreciate that. I mean, I'm a resident also, and I understand what you're saying, but I look at it on the flip side. I don't think there's any damage. We're not causing any damage to Colerain Township by doing this. I think there's mechanisms that are in play that new owners have to jump through the hoops to get what they want, and whether they do or not, I mean, that's who knows. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's a big hypothetical. I say it's a very low probability of happening to say you're going to dissolve a planned district. That's my opinion.
If we accept this, if we approve this, what's the benefit to Colerain Township right now? That's exactly my point.
I don't think it's a zero sum. There's no detriment. There's no benefit. There's nothing different about it. The only reason we're here is because of some condition that I think was invalid in the first place, and we're asked to come in front and do a major modification process. To me, there is not a net gain or loss for the township in either situation.
All right. Sorry.
I do want to say something about that. Let me get back up here. I do see issues with this because we had the same situation just 2 years ago, right down the street with the Raising Cane's property. That was done, I've sat here for 6+ years now, that was done a few years back when it was just the Quickie Lube place. Somebody bought that, they split it in half, then we were stuck with dealing with this lot that we didn't have the park and we didn't have the setbacks of the road. I think we had 11 modifications, if I'm not right, to make that Raising Cane's fit that property and work with that. And then they threw it in our face saying, we have this piece of property, you gotta let us do something with it. We weren't the ones that cut it in half. It was a decent sized lot when it had the lube place and I think it was the old fish and chips.
Long John's.
Long John's. But they sold that property. I can see that happening right here. They sell this place, the coffee place moves out, somebody else wants to come in there and put a different restaurant or something in there, and we have 7 parking spots. And at that point, everybody's gonna say, hey, they're not using our lot. They bought that lot by itself. That's what they have.
That's the whole point here. You don't have 7 parking spots. You have all of those parking
If
spots.
they
because of
sell
these
that the
agreements.
way that is cut up right there, they have 7 parking spots.
No, sir, I disagree strongly with you. That's why Lamar Companies has the agreements that they have to allow everybody to access the parking areas independently and to share parking. That's the whole reason they're involved in the process, is to oversee all of that.
But they're selling it off to another.
It doesn't matter. The agreement is for everybody. The agreement runs with the land. It's identical to an HOA, and you sell your house. You sell your house, that doesn't mean the HOA rules go away. They still apply no matter who owns it, no matter how many people own it. Those rules still apply, and it's the same as here. It doesn't matter who owns Starbucks or how many people own Starbucks. Their overriding real estate agreement is in effect, period.
So they'd be able to tell the people that buy that property that they can't do anything else with that property if they don't like it. If I buy Starbucks, next year I decide I want to tear it down and put a Burger King there, they can tell me that I can't do that?
With the easement agreement, it's part of the purchase. Just like when we purchased the center, we agreed to purchase the easement agreement, and we have to honor that agreement. And there are other parcels there, such as JCPenney's, that's a part of it, and they have to honor what's in that agreement as well. Because we are keeping it maintained, we are making sure things are done properly, and are making sure that codes are met. But that is part of the purchase, is when they purchase if they were to purchase the property, the easement agreement is part of the purchase, and it's recorded as part of the deed, along with the deed.
So that's recorded right now with that parcel.
Yes, sir, it should be.
It should be. That's where I have the problem, because we have no jurisdiction over what kind of agreement you have with those people when you sell that property. That's an agreement between you and them. We have nothing to say about that. So next thing we know is those people did somehow buy it with 7 parking spots, and they want to come in here and redo it, and that always puts us up against the fence.
Well, I said, from where I stand,
Understood.
we do put it with the purchase, and it is recorded.
But if you all are one big family, as you describe it,
Yes, sir.
then why are we doing these lot splits?
Just as he said, there's opportunities. There are businesses out there who would like frontage or who would like to own their own parcel, and that then brings you, Colerain, the taxes, as opposed as it's a setting empty. I mean, there are some businesses out there right now that they want to own that property and they want to come right here. And that's why we would want to do something like this, but they would also buy the easement agreement as well.
Taking Starbucks, are you saying Starbucks doesn't own the land at all?
No, sir.
Does anybody in there own the land?
No, sir. Well, the parcels that we purchased, we own, and Starbucks and Best Buy and the small building is ours. The others, JCPenney's, they own their parcel and their building, and they then are in the easement agreement.
So is the intent with, what is this, the larger triangle, what is that, A or B?
That would be A and B, sir.
A. So the intent there is for somebody possibly for that to be sold off also?
Could be. I mean, Best Buy is there. Best Buy is very noted for wanting to own their own building.
Okay, then I'm referring to the triangle with B.
Triangle with B, I mean, there are three parcels there. We could sell it to one buyer, or we could keep it as 3 and own it indefinitely. I'm not sure, exactly what could happen, other than, yes, it could sell, but the easement goes with the sale.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, any other comments or questions for these two persons?
Has anyone spoken to Starbucks about the project?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Okay.
And how long have you managed the property?
Ms. Eddington, there's a question.
I'm sorry.
How long has your firm
Come to the
managed the
podium,
property?
please.
I think the question was how long we've had the property. We purchased it in December of 2021. And we have gotten some tenants into some of the other spaces. We listened to our tenants when we purchased it. They were, were concerns over things that weren't happening, and we started getting things cleaned up. I was just there today, and from what it looked like 4 months ago, it's much prettier, cleaner, and that's part of listening to the tenants and getting things done to make it attractive for everybody concerned.
Commissioners, any other comments before I move on? Okay, before we ask for a motion for to open public hearing, I think this might be a good time, Mr. Allig, if you could clarify two questions I think that Mr. Huber raised. And the first one is on the very first page of the staff report that you gave us under proposed modifications. Could you clarify item B about the lot combination? Mr. Huber maintains that that was not part of his request.
I absolutely would, sir. It's been my experience, while nothing specifically was stated, that was the case. It's been my experience that sometimes if something like this is proposed, where it is ambiguous, that what is to happen with that area there, nothing's defined. The existing property lines aren't even clearly defined on there as it is, on there being a survey. As a matter of precaution, maybe not the best thing to do. I'm very familiar with how to spell the word assume, sometimes more often than I care to like to. But it was just to make sure that wasn't the case, if you will. So where it's here, where it's not clear, if anyone, I'm not a surveyor, and I know it's a very technical field. I know sometimes there's some funny things with remainder properties. So if you show a survey and there's remainders, I know enough to be dangerous and stay out of it. So put it in there to make sure that if that was intended, we address it. If it wasn't, then it came up as well.
So I'm still confused. Is it part of what is being proposed to us tonight, or is it not?
I am not 100% certain about that. I'm assuming from Mr. Huber's comments that it is not being proposed. But again, based on my knowledge of surveys, I just wanted to make sure it was at least addressed.
Okay. And then the second item, Mr. Allig, is on the second page where you have in the first paragraph regarding the 2011 lot split, and you say that it appears to be invalid. Could you comment on that and give us some understanding there?
Yes, sir. In Resolution 33-07, Part E, and then number 8, it lists all parcels included in this zone change and development proposal shall be consolidated. There are times where I'm not really granted the ability to sort of assume things or to presume things. When I read that flat out, to me it means everything should be consolidated in there. I did not see any files and any evidence of a minor or major amendment being filed for this property. And then additionally, this, in a staff report for a minor amendment in August of 2009, it is listed in here that upon approval of the original final development plan for Stone Creek Town Center Phase 2 by the Zoning Commission in August of 2007, 2 additional conditions were placed on the site. One being remaining signage, and then part 2 being any modifications to the final development plan shall be submitted as a minor or major amendment. This is simply a sentence in a staff report, 2009. I can't find any validity of that in the resolution, which is really all that matters. But when I see some type of, again, ambiguity like that, sort of the default is bring it here and see what the zoning commission thinks. So that was my basis for that, sir.
Okay. Mr. Huber, did you want to comment on that, or?
No, I guess just to clarify on both of those comments, that the consolidation that he's requesting, that is not part of my application, so I'm not asking for that. And if I can put words in your mouth a little bit, you're not going to require that, right?
No, sir,
Okay.
not at all.
So that's fair. I think we've addressed that. And then as far as the invalid cut-up with the statement that he just read from the staff report, I mean, I don't know what to say. If somebody went to the township and whoever the administrator was at that time, they stamped the legal description. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I stamp stuff all the time. I mean, sometimes I wish I didn't stamp it, but if I did, I'm stuck with it. So, and I'm not knocking anybody or disparaging anyone, but, I mean, we did what we thought was correct
Okay,
at the time.
thank you, sir.
If I could just have another moment, please. If the Starbucks lot size, if that's causing heartburn with everybody, I think we're willing to make that bigger to meet the parking requirement. I don't remember what Mr. Ailig had up there as far as the parking count, but I know that there was the shared parking part of the code that allows up to 50% to be shared. So I think if it eases everybody's heartburn, we're willing to move that property line and meet that shared parking requirement to, get the parking situation taken care of. I'm not sure exactly what size that lot would be. I think in the staff report, he was trying to get to the 20,000 square foot size. I don't know if we'll get to that, but at least we'll cover the parking aspect of it, that all of the parking will be on the Starbucks parcel. And the parcel size will be bigger than what it is now, but I'm not sure of what the, what the final size will be. But at least it'll address the parking concern. So if the board is willing to consider that, we're willing to move that property line there to meet the shared parking requirement as stated in the zoning resolution.
Okay, thank you, sir. At this time, we need to entertain a motion to open the floor for public hearing, and may I have a motion to do so?
I'll make a motion.
And I'll second.
Okay. Is there any discussion of that motion? Mr. Allig, could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Fearing?
Yes.
Mr. Gehring?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. McMullen?
Yes.
Mr. Grody?
Yes. Mrs. Shield, would you please administer the oath that you need to administer for anybody who wishes to speak about this particular item in public session, please?
Anyone who'd like to speak, you could stand and raise your right hand. I see no one.
Okay, for the sake of the TV, we better do it again.
Yeah. If there's anyone who'd like to speak, please stand and raise your right hand. Seeing no one, Commissioner?
All righty. Okay, so commissioners, we need a motion now to close the public hearing.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Okay, Mr. Allig, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Fearing?
Yes.
Mr. Gehring?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. McMullen?
Yes.
Mr. Grody?
Yes, okay. Commissioners, at this particular point, it's our opportunity to open discussion among ourselves and/or to further question either Mr. Huber or Ms. Eddington if you have additional questions. Okay?
Yep.
Okay. So hearing none, Chair is willing to entertain a motion regarding this matter of case ZA 2022-03, if somebody would like to make that motion. Whatever it may be.
I move that we not approve ZA 2022-03.
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there further discussion regarding the motion? Does everybody, commissioners, do you all understand the nature of the motion? Any further questions on that? Okay, Mr. Allig, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Fearing?
Yes.
Mr. Gehring?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. McMullen?
No.
Mr. Grody?
Clarify for me, the yes vote means I approve the denial.
I believe that that is the case.
Okay.
As
Does
presented for
everybody
the
feel?
motion.
Mine is yes. So I lost track there. Was it 4-1-0? Okay, so the motion to deny the request has been denied. Okay, thank you. Okay, we move on to case ZA 2022-04. This is a major amendment to ZA 4-89. And at this time, Mr. Alec, does staff have a report?
I do, sir. Dealing with it almost exact similar portion, at least in my purview, to the zoning resolution. Case ZA 2022-04 is a major amendment to FDP. The original case was presented to as a ZA 4-89. It's listed in our files as Mount Airy Kroger. I'm not sure if that's actually maybe official or not. Location being 6401 Colerain Avenue. The applicant being M. McBride Dale Clarion. We have the property owner being Realty Income Properties 6 LLC. Pardon that map was incorrect. This property is located in the very southern tip of Colerain Avenue. Of Colerain Township on Colerain Avenue. Initially, it was zoned an EE Plan Residential District in 2007. There was an appendix to the zoning resolution, Appendix A, the only appendix in the zoning resolution, where any property designated EE Plan retail was reclassed as a PDB. It's staff's understanding that doesn't change any of the specifics of the condition of the Board of Trustees or Commissioners, whomever approved in that scenario. So it leads us to the major amendment at this part. Sort of one, I guess, very nice aspect is all the zoning that existed in '89, the same zoning classifications under the Hamilton County code at that point are almost identical. It's like coincidence, I'd assume. Planners are known for copying and pasting to Colerain's designations, descriptions, and densities of our residential areas that are there now, being R6 and B3, as listed in the staff report. Pardon me. On the screen is the initial PDP when presented back in '89, and then moving in through the FDP. All of these documents would still be applicable to the development now unless any modifications made through this process we're going through. This is just a view looking sort of to the west across Colerain Avenue. The existing Kroger's been abandoned for, I believe it's been at least 3 years, our records indicate. The property's in pretty tough shape, at least the exterior is. Kind of moving around. This would be looking south, and there's sort of an intentional aspect of this. The white structure at the very bottom of the picture here is the current Grippo's. I believe it's a manufacturing location, if I'm mistaken about that. I'm sure I'll be corrected. The purchaser, it's stated in the application, is a representative for the Grippo Food Company, and the amendment being applied for is to allow a variance to permit warehousing as a use in the Kroger. This is looking sort of northeast from the south. This is just to sort of highlight. Here is, I believe it's called a Blue Rock Park. It's in Green Township. The Green Township, Colerain Township border actually bisects some of these properties almost right at their front porch, running right here. So we're right on the southern edge of the township where it meets another jurisdiction. In this, the applicant has requested a major amendment to resolution number 842 to modify the permitted uses of EE planned retail business to include warehouses or warehousing as an approved use. The applicable zoning regulations would be section 21.1 and then either slash or reference to section 14.1.21. This is all the commissioners should have received this. This is the initial resolution approving the planned district going through back in '89. This is just to show that it was approved as EE Plan Residential District. And in Article 21, which covered the EE Plan Business District regulations, excuse me, I said residential, planned business district, excuse me. Any use permitted in the E Retail Business District may be permitted in the EE Planned Business District. That is this second highlighted portion right here. So I'll read that again. So any use permitted in the E Retail Business District may be permitted in the EE Planned Business District. So that being section 21.1 is to indicate that listed in Article, so E being Article 14 in the old code, E Retail Business District, a building or premises, getting the use regulations, excuse me, section 14.1, building or premises may be used for any purposes except the following. And in there it states, if I can get this to work, there we go. Section 14.1.21 would be wholesale warehouses or businesses. Again, sometimes not always granted latitude to apply certain things, excuse me, for that, for not articulating that. At times, when things are written down like this, I don't always get the latitude to say, yep, logic, may or may not prevail here, so that's why this case is here. It's staff's belief that as it existed and was permitted and existed as a Kroger grocery retail store, that use is far more intense than almost, at least far I can think of at this moment, any typical warehouse would be. Kroger bringing in all kinds of trucks, all kinds of vehicles. That's simply to point to state that while at times, it may be listed as a more intense use or even not specifically or explicitly listed as a more intense use, it sometimes can be presumed based on it being in a higher use classification. And that is, I'll sort of digress here, in our current zoning code, zoning resolution, warehousing is permitted in B3 districts and in I districts, so industrial districts, whereas retail is permitted, even down at the B1 level, so neighborhood business. So just to kind of give it's not a concrete evidence say it is more intense, warehousing is or is not more intense. Again, in this specific scenario, it's staff's opinion that a warehouse for an operation such as Grippo's would be a much less intense use than a Kroger would be. Just want to make sure that that's well articulated as well as I can. I apologize. So sort of a summary of this case, one variance is being sought to modify the approved use as listed in the resolution back in '89. Staff's recommendation is for approval of the requested major amendment to ZA 4-89, with a variance being granted to 14.1.21. That was the prohibition of warehousing in this in an E district, which then was referred to by our section 21, Article 21, section 21.1 being an EE planned business district. The proposed major amendment is in accordance with the criteria listed regarding section 4.3.4A. Again, section 4.5.3B, 1 through 8, the proposed major amendment does meet the listed criteria. And then when we get to sort of the planned districts, the criteria we have now, which doesn't necessarily apply to this particular property, given that it was as an EE. Everything here basically lines up to be a sound planning decision. Staff's opinion of that is that everything presented here, that the use of the property as a Kroger was a much more intense use than the property would be if the commission were to approve the use of the property as a warehouse. And all right, that concludes staff's presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Halleck. Commissioners, questions or comments for Mr. Halleck before we hear, I assume, from the applicant or applicant's representative? Okay. Is the applicant represented this evening? And if you so, would you please come forward, state your name, your address, and if you would spell your name for the record, please.
To lower that. My name is Ann McBride, McBride. My address is 5721 Dragon Way, Suite 300, Cincinnati 45227. It's nice to be back in Colerain Township this evening. I am representing 4Gen Properties LLC, and there are 3 representatives of that organization here present this evening if you had specific questions that I couldn't answer. The 4Gen Properties LLC has an option to purchase the 9.2 acres, which is located at 6401 Colerain Avenue. The existing property, as your staff indicated, was rezoned from B2 and F industrial to their EE planned retail business district in 1989 by the Hamilton County Board of Commissioners. It's been a nice trip down memory lane for me because I did that zone change in 1989. I was about 5 years old. But at any rate, the final development plan was approved by the Hamilton County Rural Zoning Commission. That included a 58,830 square foot Kroger store. On that final development plan then, it specified the signage for the site, the lighting for the site, landscaping for the site, traffic improvements that were required as part of the development. There was an out parcel. There were standards for the out parcel that were also part of the final development plan. And that final development plan then became the zoning for that site. The Kroger was actually completed in 1991. Since that time, then obviously Colerain Township, like a lot of the townships in Hamilton County, adopted your own zoning. And the final development plan, however, remained in effect as the zoning for this site. In 2018, in December, Kroger vacated this building to move up to Springdale Road here. And again, when they did that, then obviously that was about 4 years ago. So I guess 3.5 actually, technically. But so that property has remained vacant for a number of years. 4Gen Properties wants to buy the site and then utilize the building for the storage of products that's generated by Grippo's, which is located at 6750 Colerain Avenue. So it's obviously very convenient to the Grippo's facility. The Grippo's company, as you all I'm sure are aware, is a longtime Colerain Township business. They're successful and they want to stay and expand into Colerain Township. But their production, however, is going to remain at the facility at 6750. What they are proposing to do with the site that's under consideration this evening is to store product in that store. There's a possibility sometime in the future they may mix the seasonings that go in the seasoning salt that my husband loves. It's the barbecue stuff. And they may mix those seasonings together, but there's not going to be any production or packaging and those kinds of things. Right now, it's just going to be used for storage. So we are requesting a major modification to allow for the storage and possible assembly as a permitted use on the site. In terms of the intensity, as your staff was indicating, we feel that the intensity is actually less than the approved Kroger store. Normally, I would agree that industrial warehousing, whatever you want to call it, would be more intensive than a retail use. But when you're looking at this particular site, it's never going to be an intensive warehouse distribution center, okay? First of all, the building isn't big enough. Most of those guys, I represent Hillwood, which is one of the big developers of distribution centers. Everybody's looking for 300,000 square feet and up. And as I mentioned, this is a little over 58,000 square feet. The second thing is that now everyone is requiring a clear height of at least 32 feet, and some are taking 36 feet. And the Kroger building simply doesn't have that height in the building, okay? And then lastly, there's only 2 real loading docks in the rear of this building, and I would offer that they would be very challenging to get a semi in there. I'm very glad I don't drive a semi. I'm trying to get into there. So at any rate, for those reasons, this site, this building is never going to be a distribution center or an intensive warehouse use. It's going to be strictly used for the Grippo facility down the street. In those terms, they're anticipating about 8 employees on this site. A retailer that could go in there as of right could have, a Kroger store has anywhere from 175 to 250 full-time and part-time employees. They're going to have 0 customers there, and we all know what a grocery store or a Walgreens or whatever, how many customers come in and out of there on a daily basis. That's why they become successful. The proposed use would have, they anticipate 6 truck deliveries for the week. Kroger that was there would have 10 to 12 a day. So you can see in terms of traffic and volume and intensity, the proposed use is significantly less. If you look at hours of operation, the proposed facility would be for 5 days a week, 6 to 6, and a retail operation could go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So again, the intensity is significantly less. There are also a number of other retail-type uses that are permitted within your zoning code in the B3 that would be more intensive retail than even the Kroger store. So we are requesting this evening then approval of the major modification to allow for a viable permitted use in what is a long vacant building, which in turn then allows a long-established company to continue to thrive in Colerain Township. As I mentioned, there are representatives of 4Gen properties here if you have questions, where I'd be happy to try to answer those.
Okay, thank you. If you'll just remain at the podium for a moment, and commissioners have questions or comments.
I do. Did you say there was going to be assembly at that location?
Yes, there's 2 loading docks right now at the Kroger, old Kroger store, and so they would anticipate 6 truck deliveries a week there, but they're not going to be left there. They're going to drop off product and leave.
Okay, thank you.
Hearing none. Okay, thank you, Ms. McBride. It's good seeing you again. Haven't seen you for a while here at the meeting. Okay. At this time, commissioners, we need to have a motion to open the public hearing, please.
I'll make a motion.
I second.
Okay. Any discussion of that motion? Mr. Allig, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Ferring,
Yes.
Mr. Guerin,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. McMullen,
Yes.
Mr. Grody.
Yes. And again, Mrs. Schild, would you administer the swearing-in process if there's someone who wishes to speak to this?
If there's anyone who would like to speak on behalf of this application, if you could stand and raise your right hand, please. Seeing no one, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you. We'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing, please.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Mr. Allig, would you call roll, please?
Mr. Ferring,
Yes.
Mr. Guerin,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. McMullen,
Yes.
and Mr. Grody.
Yes. So the motion has carried to close the public hearing. Commissioners, this is the time where we have the opportunity to discuss among ourselves or ask questions of our presenters this evening.
Is it fair to assume the Kroger sign would come down and the Ripco sign would go up, and the grass and so forth would be cleaned up quite a bit in the area?
Okay. All right, hearing none, could we have a motion regarding this matter one way or the other? Case ZA 2022-04.
I would like to make a motion to approve the major amendment for case ZA 2022-04, the way it's.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, is there further discussion regarding this motion? Everybody understands the motion that was proposed. Mr. Allig, could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Ferring,
Yes.
Mr. Guerin,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. McMullen,
Yes.
Mr. Grody.
Yes. Okay. Ms. McBride, a trivia question for you.
There we go.
What was the business located there before Kroger's? Space, Feed, and Things. Us younger people in the audience remember that, so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And us younger people would wish that it would be another space type store, because they're
Yes.
always fun to go into.
Okay, at this point, we're moving on to item number 6. We have informal concept review, and if I'm not mistaken, I think there are 2 items that we've been requested to review. So the first one is ICR 2022-01, proposal of rezone from R6 to PDB at 8944 Colerain Avenue, which is the Weiler Honda dealership. Mr. Ehrlich, does staff have a report?
I do have a real quick presentation, but if I could, prior to that, just I've never presided here in Colerain Township over an informal concept review. It's my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that it is just that. It's very informal. We're not doing any motions, anything like that. Sir, is that correct? Does that sound right to you? Commissioner, does that sound right? It's just an idea is presented, both sides talk. This we think's good, this we think maybe not be good, vice versa. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Excellent, okay. Just want to make sure. Relax a little bit here. As no stranger to the commission here, and as I brought up last meeting in March, our staff was approached in January by the applicants to discuss rezoning this property. Weiler Honda being 8944, 8950 Colerain Avenue. Initially, the property was rezoned, or at least through our records, maybe before that, but in 2002, it was approved, part of it was approved as a PDB, and then in 2019, they reapplied. In the 2019 portion, it was brought to light that some of the conditions from 2002 had not been satisfied. If I could say one part on that on staff, granted, I wasn't there at the time, so I guess it's kind of scot-free, but you, as commissioners, have seen me make mistakes. Not only the motion of the potion, but also, at times, getting real close to getting things to you, right, timelines, and sometimes exceeding those. So when there are items like that, if it was a thing where a condition was put on it, obviously the applicant is by all means, they are legally required to do that. I would say, as far as I could tell from a search from our records, I cannot find anything where our department reached out to them to tell them they had failed to meet that, or to meet any of those requirements, at least leading up to the 2019 case. I haven't found anything. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It means I wasn't able to find anything in our records. And I'll be corrected, I'm sure, if I'm wrong, but I believe everyone, maybe with the exception of Mr. Westfall, sorry to catch you off guard, is new to this case, from the sense of, did anyone preside over it? I know I wasn't here in 2002, in the initial rezone, as far as, so maybe the applicants present might be, staff definitely is, so just sort of attempting to approach this with either fresh or equalize. At the moment, all the conditions, and I didn't have this available in March, and I apologize, that was on me, all the conditions have been met. Additionally, the one item I'd requested has been submitted to staff, and that was just to show a secondary proposal of some type of pervious pavement. Not required or anything like that, but the applicant did obligate, or oblige, excuse me, to that. They were not obligated to do so. So just sort of kind of lay everything that is, as far as everyone here, as far as I know, everything complies, that the proper obligations have been met. I personally did go out there and look and saw the 3 items that were listed in 2019. All have been done. So just to lay that groundwork. And another aspect that I'm concerned on staff side, and again, maybe I may defer to Sarah on this a little bit, and also the commissioners, is the current parcel that we're discussing. One, it's triple zoned. It's Part B2, Part PDB, and then the applicants acquired this part from the Moose Lodge not too long ago, and then consolidate that, and that is all R6. Not an ideal situation as it stands, but that's just simply a note from staff for what it's worth. All the plans as submitted, I believe the commissioners received all this, and for the most part, just to sort of wrap up a quick summary, as quick as I made at this point, all the conditions from 2002, from the initial rezone, have been adhered to at present time. As far as I can tell, there was not any communication from our department, from staff, reaching out to the applicant, saying, you're not in compliance with this in that time span. Not trying to defer obligation one way or the other, just saying, it's just simply a fact of the matter. And then the other portion, what was, again, It concerns me when I see a parcel that's triple, that has 3 different zoning classifications on one parcel. So even if nothing else, some discussion, and I would like, whatever that's worth, discussion on that particular topic. That covers, for the most part, all I have to say on the matter.
Okay. Commissioners, any comments or questions for Mr. Hallig at this point?
Thank you for going out to the property and checking for us. I know we asked for that and appreciate your feedback.
Okay, I would take it that there are representatives here. Would someone like to come forward and introduce yourself? Your address, please, and spell your name for the record.
Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Tim Burke from the Manley Burke Law Firm. My last name is spelled B-U-R-K-E. The address of our law firm is 225 West Court, Cincinnati 45202. With me tonight, and this is important, none of us were involved in 2002. We recognize that this property has some history on it. And the first person I'd like you to hear from Weiler is Brian McNair, who is the general counsel for Weiler, and he can provide a little bit of history on what happened here and their acquisition of the property. Brian?
Okay. Again, Mr. McNair, welcome, but if you again will state your name, address, and spell your name, please.
Yes, my name is Brian McNair, M-C-N-A-I-R. My business address is 401 Milford Parkway, Suite A, Milford, Ohio, 45150. I'm here on behalf of Jeff Weiler Colerain, which is located at 8950 Colerain Avenue.
Okay. All right, the floor is yours, sir.
Well, first of all, on behalf of yes, okay, I apologize. I didn't want to sidestep Mr. Burke here. First of all, and on behalf of the Weiler family, from the patriarch Jeff Weiler to his sons David and James and his daughters Jessica and Julie, who all are part of this business, yes, we owe an apology, very candidly. Mr. Hallig has actually been very gracious in, without a doubt, the 2002, there were requirements. Those requirements were that vehicles were not to be unloaded on Pool Road. There was a billboard that is actually owned by Lamar Advertising on the site. The requirement from 2002 was that billboard was to have Weiler advertising on both sides of the billboard, and then landscaping. Actually, I got a chuckle out of that when we talked about that, because the original 2002 requirement was that all ash trees be planted. So that shows you how things have changed. But in any event, I've been with the company a little going on 8 years, and Mr. Paul Rini, who is also with us, has been with the company and in his position helping with development of property since 2013. And while ignorance is no excuse, I'll be the first to admit that I did not research and find out about those requirements from 2002. Unfortunately, the folks that would have been involved with the company at that time have either passed away or are no longer with the company. So again, we owe an apology. I had a duty. I should have looked it up. In all of my conversations, and I had probably about 12 to 15 either in-person or telephone conversations with Marty Kohler, who was the senior planner back in 2016, 17, 18, 19. Also with Jesse Urbancic, I apologize if I mispronounced his name, who was the planner. And subsequently, even later, with Mike Iona. At no time, as Mr. Hallig again has graciously pointed out, had the Weiler company been put on notice of a violation. There had not been a citation issued, an order issued, no notification that we were in violation of these requirements. And again, it's no excuse, but over the passage of time, and especially with people passing on or moving on to the greater glory of God or to other jobs, no one knew, and I've talked with this as Mr. Rini with the Weiler family, no one was aware of those requirements. Again, that's no excuse, and I'll be the first one to admit that. However, so to that, along those lines, the first time I heard of those requirements, and the first time Mr. Rini heard of those requirements, and when we went back the next day and talked with the family, was September 10th of 2019 when we were here in front of you all. Immediately, vehicles stopped being unloaded on Pole Road. That stopped immediately. The billboard was a different issue because that was owned by Lamar. Lamar had contractual agreements with, I believe it was M&M Mars, if I'm not mistaken, for the other side of the billboard. And it took until November of 2020 for that contractual agreement to expire. So as of November of 2020, both sides of that billboard, we have a contract with Lamar when both sides of those both sides of the billboard have Weiler advertising on that. So we're in compliance with that. The third part was the landscaping. We've worked with BZAC. The original requirement was completed as of July of 2021, and we actually had additional landscaping completed by BZAC, which completed on October 25th of 2021. Simply put, and then let me talk briefly about the relationship with Moose Lodge, because I think there were some questions that came up with that. Weiler has had a relationship with the Moose Lodge. Well, first of all, Weiler wants to be a good corporate citizen, not only on Colerain Township and Colerain Avenue, but throughout Greater Cincinnati and throughout the tri-state. Weiler came to Colerain Township in 1999. November 30th of 1999 is when the Honda dealership opened up. 2016, Weiler's then made an agreement with Fallhaber and wound up taking over the Nissan dealership, which is up the street. And in fact, our belief in our commitment to Colerain Township and the Colerain Avenue corridor is so strong that the property that was where the Nissan dealership is currently is actually owned by Dave and John Castrucci. I'm going back for some folks might remember those when they were involved. But we actually bought that property on March 31st of this year. So, and as of now, I'm not permitted to say too much, we are in negotiations and hoping very strongly that at the end of July to purchase a third property on Colerain Avenue that now is basically sitting empty, so we can develop a third dealership. So we're committed to Colerain Avenue, and we've had good success here, and we want to do right by Colerain. Going back in history, the relationship with Moose Lodge and Weiler was very strong. In 2001, there was actually an agreement that was forged with Weiler and Moose Lodge with regard to the lot that Moose had. Then what happened, unfortunately, over the years is, and I love this fact, that Moose Lodge is the second Moose Lodge ever. I don't know if any of you knew that. That was Moose Lodge number 2. Which I thought was kind of a neat fact. And I worked very closely with a gentleman by the name of David Venata, a wonderful man. He was the head of the Moose Lodge, and he came to us actually in 2015, and I met with him many times. Again, without saying too much, it was private. The Moose was in trouble financially with their national, very honestly. So he came to us and said, do you want to buy the property? And obviously, it's right there. So yes, we negotiated the purchase of the Moose Lodge property, and that closed in 2000. Actually, is August 31st of 2016. And then we actually leased the property back to the Moose so that they could continue to have their functions. So it wasn't just a hard, cold stop for them. So that they then continued to actually use the property, have their functions, park vehicles there, have their picnics, their meetings, all of their social gatherings, and conducted the business of the lodge under a lease agreement that we had with them. So again, just in summation, we are committed, the Weiler family is committed to Colerain Township. I will take personal responsibility. It is my job to find out what laws are on the books, and I dropped the ball, clearly, before 2019 hearing. But I had met with Marty, met with Jesse. It had never come up in any of our meetings or any of our discussions. Again, that's no excuse. It's on me. But we've corrected those errors, and we want to move forward with doing business in Colerain Township. And with regard to operating a dealership, we need inventory. And yes, I mean, it's in the news every day. And I wish I could sit here and tell you all that the inventory shortages and the supply chain shortages and the chip shortages are going to go away and going to get better this year. They're not. But they will get better, probably by the end of 2023, certainly by early 2024. But we need inventory. And when a manufacturer contacts us, whether it be Honda, General Motors, Chrysler, whoever it might be, what they do is they say, we're shipping you 75 Accords, and we're shipping you 50 Civics. They're coming June 1st. We can't say no, especially in this market. And we have to have inventory in order to be competitive in not only the greater automotive market, but in what's considered the greater regional market. Our competitors aren't just here in Cincinnati. We have people from Columbus, Louisville. We sell cars to people from Illinois, California, and yes, Hondas. You would be surprised how many people come from out of state. So we have to have inventory in order to conduct business and to be successful. And we need this space. And I think I could turn things over again to Tim or to Mr. Watson, who can expand on what Mr. Alex said with regard to what we want to do so that the surface that these vehicles will be on will be well maintained and actually will be a benefit to all involved, because we do respect the fact that there are residents who live behind this area. But again, I think we certainly have tried, and we want to make this work for all involved. And I think today's the first step to making that happen.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Burke.
I would like to introduce Mr. Watson, who is the Senior Vice President at McGill Smith Puncheon, and let him explain to you, particularly if Jared can put back up the drawing that will show the design that has been created as to how Weiler proposes to use this site for the storage of their vehicles, where people are able to walk around and look at the cars once they can fill that lot. And they can in the future, if not this week.
Okay.
Jim?
Sir, if you state your name, address, and please spell your name for the record.
Jim Watson, W-A-T-S-O-N. I'm with McGill Smith Puncheon, 3700 Park 42 Drive, Suite 190B, Cincinnati 45241. The plan that we've submitted is, the outer perimeter of the plan is essentially the same as what we submitted in 2019. But what's different about it, and Jared, if we could go to that sheet right there, thank you, is we've introduced a few changes from the 2019 plan. The 2019 plan had no landscaping internal in the parking area, none at all. It was a variance that we were requesting at the time. We are no longer requesting that variance. We have added multiple islands that will be curbed and landscaped. If you see the darker shaded parking spaces to the north and to the west, that is where the parking area drains. It sheet flows to those locations, and it is in those locations that we are proposing the pervious pavement. Then I think we have a landscape plan is further back in the set. And I think it's important for you to see this. What we've got here is the thing's very heavily landscaped. You will see to the north that in that particular area, there is no existing buffer to speak of. There is a somewhat decrepit wood fence there. We want to remove that fence. We want to place landscaping adjacent to the adjoining property, and then behind that landscaping on our side, we would install a new fence. If you can see where it's got the triangle number 4, that would be a new board-on-board fence, and we would improve the look at that of that area. Now, if you to the right of that, in the area called number 1, you don't see any new landscaping there. That's an area that's heavily, there's a heavy concentration of evergreens in that area. So we're not proposing anything new there. We want to maintain those evergreens. They provide a more effective screen than anything that we we could place there. To the south, you see a lot of heavy landscaping there. We're adjacent to the Ford property, but it is an R6 zone. And in accordance with that zoning, we're landscaping it accordingly. And we're calling for a fence there as well. And then, of course, you can see the interior islands are all landscaped as well. The difference a difference between this plan and the 2019 plan is we've added the islands. We've got 32 less spaces, about 10% reduction of what we had previously. And the math gets a little funny, but it's a little more than 10% less hard surface with this plan. So with the pervious pavement, the reduced hard surface, we could presumably have a reduction in size in our stormwater detention facilities, but we haven't made it smaller. It's the same size as it was in 2019. And of course, that detention facility is, unlike a lot of things that are in this watershed, older developments that either have detention facilities that don't meet current requirements, or there are no detention facilities at all. This will be something that meets current requirements. That it not only addresses water quality issues, which is something relatively new that EPA has required, I don't know, over the last 10, 15 years. But then it also addresses superstorm requirements. So when the big rain comes, it's properly sized to handle runoff from those severe storm events as well. So I think with that, that's about all I can do all I can speak to. With this plan, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay,
Well, thank you.
thank you, sir.
And all of us associated with this application would be happy to respond to any questions from the commission,
Okay.
or to hear whatever suggestions you might have for modifications, because we understand that's the reason why we are here tonight.
Okay.
And we appreciate this opportunity. Frankly, I do a lot of land use and zoning work around the area. This is a unique procedure that you have, and it's a very helpful one, and we appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Commissioners, before we open this up, Mrs. Schild and Mr. Allig, I know this doesn't require a public hearing, but there are several names on the list here that I have. I don't know if they want to speak to this issue and offer input or the next issue. So do we need to swear them in also or not, since this is an informal concept review?
Since it's so informal, we can probably forego.
Okay, all right. So just to get an idea, are there persons in the audience who would like to speak to these gentlemen about what was presented? Okay, commissioners, the floor is open for us to give response. And gentlemen, remember that this is an informal concept review. When you walk out of here, you cannot say, well, they've approved it or they're going to approve it. You know, it depends on what you bring back to us.
We fully understand that.
Okay, all right. So the floor is open for us to respond to them.
I think this looks pretty good. I don't know if Mr. Alex has had a chance to look at it and see if it goes to all our codes, but it's a far cry from what we had before. I have been by there, and I have noticed the cars are out of the grass and stuff, so big change.
What kind of lighting do you expect back in this area?
We've got pole lighting that runs down the center of the parking layout.
Okay.
And so it's about as distant from either property line as we can get with it. We don't have it on the edges. It's only
Down the center.
down the center. The photometric plan that we have on it shows 0.2 of a foot candle just shy of the property line.
Okay.
And of course, with those photometric plans, they don't factor in any additional screening that might result from landscaping. So that photometric is based on zero landscaping. So I think we can do better than that. If there is a requirement that it's zero, we can back it down such that it will be zero.
Height, I think, is an issue too on your poles. What are we, 24 feet?
For cutoff, yep.
So this is the area that you intend to have customers walk through and see cars, or as you mentioned before?
Yeah, sorry, yes. The primary goal is to have storage, but can I tell you that no one, the customers aren't, when they're wandering the lot, won't go back there and take a look, because the earth gray tone Accord is the only one that we have on the lot is back there. Yeah, that may happen. Okay, that may happen, but the intent is primarily for storage.
Storage, okay,
Yes.
okay. And the Moose organization is totally out of it as of this time?
They have. They have moved, is my understanding. They were holding their meetings at another location. I have lost track with the gentleman that I was working with 6 years ago. So I don't know where they are at right now.
Okay,
But yes,
is
they are completely gone.
the building still standing?
The building is not standing anymore, no,
Okay,
no.
okay.
I agree that this is a much better plan than we've seen thus far.
I think it'll enhance the property, you know, and make it a better situation for all of you. But again, it's contingent upon what you bring back in, would it be a preliminary development plan here, or is it a modification to a final?
That'd be a unique one, I believe, and we could talk about this later with Mr. Burke or Mr. McNair. It's my staff's interpretation, it would be a preliminary development plan for the portion that's not already zoned PDB in the scenario, so where the old property where the Moose Lodge was would require that. And then as a general overview of down the road, I believe it'd be staff's opinion to rezone the whole property, maybe not at fee necessarily, but because it is in the best interest, you know, especially the first case we had here, Stone Creek. Going back to there, like as Mr. McNair said, whenever it was purchased, this property was purchased, and I know the property was purchased, he said in March, compiling all the conditions that have been modified and changed then since, I think that one was done like 90s, late 90s, the old Nissan, maybe Gastrucci, excuse me. It'd be my request to basically say, okay, here's where we are, let's kind of replan everything. Now, by no means do they have to do that. They would have to do a preliminary plan for any portion that's currently zoned R6. And then a final development plan. That would, if they wanted to go to a PDB designation. I should answer shortly, I'm sorry. Just because of this property, it does have, this one specific parcel has 3 different zoning designations. I don't know what's going on with my computer, I'm very sorry. I would request that at least, at the very least, this entire portion would be rezoned. PDB would be a condition I would put in the staff report if and or when they apply for their PD and an FDP.
And with that, then that would open up a public hearing at that particular time for property owners around it?
No matter what, there's going to be 2 public hearings. Anytime property is rezoned per ORC, there's going to be the zoning commission hearing here, and then the board of trustees hearing to following on this meeting. I'd have to look, I'm not certain if you could do a major amendment to, I don't, that'd be a tricky one, because a major amendment is basically a rezoning process for all intents and purposes. You go through the same announcements, same notices, public and mailed. So either way, it'd be here, and it would be in front of the board of trustees. Long answer, sorry.
Commissioners, any other comments or input you'd like to give these gentlemen?
Yes, I love the addition of the islands, the landscaping. I remember from our last public hearing, and you had mentioned with the detention pond, you know, the whole did you call it flood, I think? Has that increased the capacity to where the neighbors are made true and whole on the backside? There was mention of the creek and
Well,
flooding and things.
here's I think the perspective to have on this is the creek that this drains to, the watershed's 120 acres. And so and it's heavily developed. 50% or 50 out of those 120 acres are heavy development. You know, some of them have detention, some have outdated detention, some have zero detention. And we can't do anything about that. We're not going to change the geology of how that stream operates by, you know, developing or not developing the site. All we can do is control what we're supposed to control. So we're in every case when you in the course of stormwater design, you have a minimum that you have to adhere to. The discharge rate from the basin has to be, I'll make up a number, 5 cubic feet per second. Well, we're not releasing 5 cubic feet per second. We're doing something less than 5 cubic feet per second. We're making the basin as big as we practically can. And in saying that, in as big as we practically can, we're eliminating, we're minimizing the trees that we have to clear. I don't want to clear the tree line that buffers the neighbor from us to make the basin bigger. Right. So within the footprint that's available, I've made the basin as big as it can be. And it just so happens I've got more storage volume than I actually need in order to meet minimum requirements.
Right, so basically, the intent is you put it in, the modifications that are made are not gonna make the stormwater drainage worse. The intent is to
That's
make
correct.
it better, so.
We
So
certainly
in
will-
essence, it answers my question,
Yes,
that the
ma'am.
neighbors are going
Right.
to have less water going on their property because of,
Downstream of us, that is an accurate statement. Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Mrs. Schild, I will again defer to you. Do we need to have a motion to close this discussion?
To close the informal concept review in
On this
general.
particular item,
Yeah, because I think we have another informal concept review on the,
yes.
If there was no motion to open it, is one required to close it?
yeah, I guess if we didn't open it, we don't gotta close
I
it,
think that's the
so.
point of the whole informal concept. I'm not trying to.
Yeah,
It's supposed
since
to
it's so
be-
informal and we didn't open it, you don't gotta close it, because we didn't open it to begin with.
Okay, all right.
You guys are learning with us.
Have we given you food for thought? Okay. Thank you for coming.
you.
Okay. Okay, moving on, we have another informal concept review, ICR 2022-02, major modification to a PD-R, 2768 Struble Road, the Cedarwood Apartments. Mr. Allig, do you have a presentation?
Yes, sir, I do. Real quick one, and I'm not sure what's going on with my computer. It's acting up a little bit. So I'm going to try and get through this part quick in case the applicants want to reference anything on the screen here. Really, the staff report's more detailed than the presentation, just to sort of show we're in the sort of northeast section of Township over here. It's Struble and Pippin, initially approved in 1968. It was the whole portion, I'm sorry, the whole south of Pippin, this whole area was approved as a PD, well, it was essentially a PDB, essentially. Then it was split off in 78 to include these PDRs, which I've included in your staff report. There we go. Directly taken from that. So resolutions included in here, and then attached here would be the applicant's drawings. Their intent is to basically put, it's two 63 by 36 foot units, and then again, I'll probably correct if I'm wrong, 3 dwellings apiece, I believe 2 stories minus a garage, and then a 12 parking spot, 12 spot parking lot addition. These were the renderings provided to our office. All the commissioners received these. Again, I'm very sorry about that, later than normally should have. And that's really the only, all I have for the presentation on this. I think the applicants probably have much more information I do.
It's two buildings with 3 units each?
That's what I believe. And if, yep, is this Mr. Sullivan? Okay.
Okay, sir, if you state your name and address, you know the routine.
Yes, sir.
And
Dan
spell your
Sullivan,
name.
Sullivan.
Okay,
My address is 3048 Triple Crown Drive, North Bend, Ohio, 45052. I brought this to your attention today for the developer who bought this property. He wanted us to come in and build a couple buildings for him. Basically, those are preliminary drawings. It does show garages on them. We're not planning on doing garages. None of the other items have garages back there. He did want to do some 2-bedroom units because all the other stuff in front of there is all 1-bedroom units. So he wants to create some more rental properties. And like I said, we probably won't have the garages there. We will have plenty of parking, but to eliminate the stairs, getting up to them, and some of the other factors. But these are just rough drawings, a concept idea. They might be a little bit different, but yes, it is going to be, we want it to be 2 buildings with 3 units on each building.
is the lot size sufficient to accommodate that?
It is. Again, I had Bear Becker look at this for me. They were saying they thought we could put more on there too, just because of that other corner that's up there to the far left. But we had thrown around a couple different ideas. This came to my attention just within the last month and a half, so not a whole lot of planning involved. We were talking about actually doing maybe two units, but talking to Bear Becker, they said usually you guys want more space between the buildings than that, so we decided the 3-unit concepts. Again, I think we could probably fit more in there and parking, but we're not going to try to do that.
Mr. Allig, is there a shot that you can show us how this is, how close this is to Pippin and
Here, so right up here to the north, if you can see this distance, just the south of that red line, so that's Struble Road, right at the top of the screen. There's a 35-foot setback from the proposed building line they're showing from their property line. So I'm not, for some reason, my computer's not presenting on my screen, unless it's in presentation mode on PowerPoint, what's on there. We could take a little bit of a guess from this, if everyone would be okay doing that. You know, if that distance there is 35, it looks to be another 10, 15 feet to Struble. And then Pippin is a fairly decent distance. It's removed. This is a separate parcel over here. This is a Sunoco gas station, which also fronts Pippin. So Pippin would be right over here. So it's pretty well removed from Pippin, but it is fairly close to Struble. The one thing I would say, I've talked to quite a few people on this, and that's all right. It's challenging. There currently exists an emergency access. Why does it take away there? Emergency access. I believe it's roughly in this vicinity, right off Struble, right here, to come through. We would down the road, nothing for tonight or anything like that, but down the road, final plan, we would probably request some plan showing the preservation of that, or
we had planned on doing that, just
Yep.
moving it over a little bit.
And that's all tonight's about, right? To say, hey, we would like to see this, and, the commission can tell you way more, that kind of stuff, but we would suggest including that emergency route. But the last thing we want to do is cut off emergency access to existing residents to pack in more residents, right?
The only thing I wasn't sure about with that and concerning that, and the property owner doesn't know either, is there's a fence there that has a gate on it now, but it's locked. And he's like, I don't know if the fire department has the access to the
They
lock.
love using their saws. Don't give them a reason. Don't put a big letter
I
lock
just
on
don't
there.
know.
No,
So
I'm teasing.
We'll
but-
figure that out, however, or if you want it to be open, but right now there's an existing fence there,
Mm-hmm.
so.
So I'd like for you to consider, when you move forward, updating some of the existing buildings that are there. It's pretty dark and, you know, just the brown, and there's not much lighting in that area as well. So for me personally, I'd like them to not feel like two different apartment complexes, that there's some
So are you talking in
sense of
terms
unity
of
between them.
lampposts and stuff like that, or are you talking about
Two
actual
different things.
construction look?
Two different things. If you have, say, you put these new buildings in and they're gray, it would be great if you painted your existing buildings gray, so you realize that it's the same complex. But also in that back area, I have a friend who lives in that back building, and at night, it's pretty dark, so I do think you'd have to do something to address the lighting
Of the
in that
existing
area as well.
buildings that are up there, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, make note of that.
Is this near Town Terrace Apartments?
I don't know.
Yes.
I can't answer
It's
that, I'm
across the
sorry.
street. Town Terrace is
This is Town
this
Terrace
street here.
Drive, too.
Yep.
How's the traffic in that area?
You're asking me how the traffic is in that area?
Right.
I don't think it's that heavy. I don't think us adding that many people would add that much more to it either. You've got access back into there too, so it's not like they'll be pulling out onto Struble or something. They've got a way that's already there. There's already existing properties there.
Yeah, because at certain times, even they put a stoplight up within the last year or two, the traffic has backed all the way up to Pippin,
Now, is
that
it?
area.
Right, I can answer that. So just last week, Hamilton County engineers, they re-engineered the traffic lights. So there's new timing at the Springdale and Pippin. So hopefully it's not backing up as far as
Not as much.
what it did.
Okay.
It's rocket science, so it's gonna probably take a few tweaks. Yeah.
And again, Mr. Alec, this would have to come back through
Oh, absolutely, yep. This would definitely be a major amendment to FDP at this point.
okay.
Yep, so zoning commission hearing, board of trustees hearing. Zoning commission would be free to place any conditions on the applicants when they came through the hearing phase. If this were a hearing, we said we would approve this with the following conditions, being something like, existing structures be updated, lighting being up, something like that. Again, the point of this process, Mr. Sullivan, is just to see generally,
Ideas.
Yep,
I'm
good
with you.
ideas. What would it take to get to that point where we do get the approval? What does the community need? How does that mesh with what the property owner has? That kind of stuff. But yes, it definitely, I'm so sorry, I trail off so bad. It definitely would come back as a hearing to the zoning commission and then final hearing to the board of trustees.
Some of the people in those existing buildings might want to jump up into those new buildings.
Possibly. Those other ones are first floor units though. You know what I mean? I can't answer that. And they have very little grade to them, so they're easy access, so I don't know that it would fall in that same category. He's actually looking for maybe a different type of tenant that needs 2 bedrooms, et cetera. A little more space.
Commissioners, any other comments,
Will these
questions?
be Section 8?
Please.
Will these new buildings be Section 8?
Oh boy, I cannot answer that question. He's looking for me to put the structures up. I'm not sure how he rents to his existing, I can find out that information, but I do not know that.
Okay.
Generally, buildings aren't built to be Section 8.
But I think a lot
They
of them
kind
are.
of turn into Section 8.
I think it has a lot of it has turned into Section 8.
So I think generally the term now, for whatever it's worth, as terms and language evolves, affordable housing vouchers. As far as I understand, I'm no means an expert, so I'm thankful this is informal. I believe it really applies to the person. And so a person could receive that affordable housing voucher. They could go to the property owner and I believe, present that, hey, I have this, will you accept that? And I think it's on the property owner to accept that or deny it as payment, payment for rent, I believe. tread in really dangerous water there, because I don't know
Yeah, I
a
was
whole
gonna
lot
say
about
you're
it,
getting into
but
adult
that's my
business,
understanding, is
so.
that it's not really, the existing theory of like Section 8 being, it is a, some type of a housing unit isn't necessarily the case. I don't believe it's more, the person gets the voucher, the person can take the voucher to any place who'll accept that voucher as payment, I believe, if that's worth anything.
Okay.
I will try to
Pretty much
verify
how
that.
it works, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I had 4 rounds
Okay.
over there, and you don't have to take Section 8 or whatever you
Yeah,
want to
okay,
call
okay.
it. You know, it's
Yep.
up to the landlord.
It-
Oh, yeah.
And then there's
Oh,
obviously.
absolutely.
Yep, you always have some who are geared specifically towards that, which can cause some severe problems for the people living there and stuff like that, so anything we can do legally to protect that would definitely be something we'll look at, keep people safe and property as nice as possible.
Okay. Okay, before you sit down, sir, is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak to this? Sir, if you'd come forward, please. And if you would state your name, address, and spell your name, please.
Carl Hauser, Hauser, 2529 West Kemper Road, Colerain. The question on the traffic, that whole property and the whole parcel that you're actually showing all exits onto Pippin Road. You were talking about the emergency exit on the Struble. Is it possible to make that emergency exit an exit or a drive onto Struble to allow more flow of traffic? Is that a possibility?
That's something you have to address to this gentleman, sir.
Well, I'll do my best to answer that. I'm not sure if Mr. Sullivan's in that realm much. That would be if Mr. Sullivan, who designed your plan, Mr. Sullivan? Please forgive me for. Oh, Bearbecker, but I didn't know that, I'm sorry. So if Mr. Sullivan went to Bearbecker and said, hey, this is what we're looking at, long story short, only the Hamilton County engineer could approve that access there. You'd be welcome to present the plan to us at that point. Whenever we see something like that, where that would trigger outside regulatory agencies, send those plans off to, MSD would be involved, Hamilton County engineers involved, so they would review it and say either, yes, this would be an approved ingress, egress, access, or either no, it wouldn't be, or maybe it could be something with a condition like there's to be a deceleration lane, something like that, right-hand turn lane to get in.
I'm sure the fire department would appreciate it.
The fire department.
More than one entrance into any resident, any.
Yeah, absolutely. All jokes aside, absolutely. On the safety side, it would definitely be a benefit. Might be a traffic relief benefit. All kinds, it could be. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Sullivan, did we give you food for thought?
Yes, and some questions that I couldn't answer, so I apologize for that.
And we posed, we posed some, and
Yes.
we're gonna have to get some answers to this.
Yes, I will.
Okay. Last chance, commissioners, anything? Okay, then we will move on with our agenda. And
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan.
items 7, 8, and 9, anything there, Mr. Allig?
I need a new computer, I think. Let's see if I can get this to start. Let's see here. No,
Old business,
sir,
new-
9, there's one aspect, if I may, sort of continuing the informal aspect, is the 2 plans received tonight for the major amendments, neither one of those plans met the criteria our department has listed on the application checklist. So if you were to go to, just for instance, not trying to pick on him, but he's kind of my buddy. He may think that Mr. Huber's application, and he and I go back and forth about this all the time, so he'll love clarification on it too. What I'm curious of is how does the commission feel about the applications that were presented tonight, the plans presented tonight for the 2 actual public hearings? Do those meet the standards you guys feel are necessary to make these decisions? And there's no part, so ideally, Colerain Township, we want to be, citizen-focused and development-friendly. Right? We want our citizens taken care of, at the same time, we want to be competitive and on the business sense. Sometimes it's not always, it's my opinion, and please correct me if you guys think differently, or if the commissioners think differently, pardon me, to have some very high requirements just to propose an amendment, like in the case of like the GREPOs, we're talking about changing one word. Whereas our application, the submittal requirements, it's a 2-page, you have to have landscape plans, lighting plans, all kinds of things. What are your personal feelings about that as commissioners? Like, if I ever brought you something where we were just talking about simply changing a word, do you believe that you have to have, newly created plans where every checkbox has to be met? Do I have any discretion in your eyes? Just, okay, this is a viable plan I could take to the commissioners or not?
To change a word or something, I would be fine with you doing that.
I can't hear.
I would be fine with you doing that yourself. I don't know how the
Okay.
rest feel.
I appreciate your
But
input.
unlike new plans, I know one thing that we don't see, that we haven't been seeing when we have a new drawing come in for a new development, is we're not seeing the lighting and all that bit, And we used to see all that.
When was the last time? Okay, can I-
I'm saying
can I
like
compare-
these,
no,
like
no.
these, like these fellows that were here from, Weiler,
Mm-hmm.
when they bring that back in, hopefully that'll have lighting and
It should have.
and everything on there, so that we can
I
see
think it
it.
was the last page on that one.
Make sure that it's, I mean, the guy seemed like he wasn't even up with, how tall, or with the maximum height of poles and stuff, so.
Yeah, well, and so at that stage with them, we usually wouldn't have gone through that whole, I wouldn't go nitpicky and, hey, this, you're off here, you're at 0.1% at the property line where it butts residential, and you have to be 0% looms at that point. So that would definitely happen. I do believe they had a lighting plan, but the big thing I'm going for is I'm attempting, and we are attempting on the administration side, to be more development focused, and can we kind of get a plan here to you, to the commissioners, that maybe, let's say on the Kroger plan necessarily, an actual public hearing we had tonight, maybe the lighting as it was approved back in '89, I could say, yep, the '89 plan, it suffices, we're good to go. I just want to make sure I'm not presenting something to the commissioners that you think is substandard or not up to your, up to par for what you want to see, I guess.
I don't think they're changing anything on the Kroger building, are they? I mean, pretty much
Nope,
using
nope.
it the way it is, so.
Yep, and all we did tonight was just approve what was approved before, and all those conditions still apply. And that's a perfect example, and all we were literally doing is focus on one word, right? The warehousing, and modifying that. So as the commissioners, as you feel, individually and professionally, and Mr. Westfall, and Mr. Bachman, I know you're here, what are you guys' thoughts on that? For a plan like that in the future, if we were to get something like that, would you require a new applicant, or an applicant now, to submit those? And
I think in the case of Kroger, when you look at the packet that we got and them paying for development plans and all those types of things for just that purpose of saying, hey, we're gonna store our chips and pretzels in this building, I feel like this is overkill.
Okay.
I would have been glad to have you make that,
One
check.
word. In the staff report, is.
It checked all the boxes in theory.
Perfect. I just want to make sure, if you guys, if the commissioners believe I've hopefully have enough intelligence to have a little bit of discretion, to say, okay, this plan should present to the commissioners enough information to make the determination that it does or does not fit the zoning resolution. Perfect example, in Kroger, there was no design element we were really talking about. It was simply a use, and it was simply a modification of one, so all that stuff. So that's what I was just going for, and that's what I'm looking for, just to see if you guys would be okay with something like that.
But let's make sure I understand the proposal for Stone Creek, for example. You didn't suggest that it should be approved, okay? It was not your recommendation for approval. I presume that the people from Stone Creek insisted that it come to us. Am I right on that or not?
I'm sorry, what was that last part?
Did the reason it came before us is because they insisted that you bring it to us, is that correct?
That's exactly correct. I suggested to them to do an informal concept review, given some very serious, qualms I had about the plan presenting. Mr. Huber, again, I don't know if you call him a buddy, but, we're some kind of, we have some kind of relationship, but, he said, nope, here's the plan. None of this is applicable, take it, pay your fee. So I was like, well, all right, we'll go get in front of the commissioners and see, if you're all right with someone like that, with that kind of attitude, fine, we'll see, and then if not,
Yeah.
let them know.
Could you, in fact, with the Kroger situation, with just the word warehouse, Could you have approved that on your own and moved forward?
I do not, it's my interpretation, I could not have, because that was explicitly prohibited in the EE. Business refers to the EE, so in my opinion, as I can think, I hope, logically and common sense, yeah, it is a less intense use than what a Kroger was, warehousing in that specific. I think that, I don't know, there's times where, it'd be great if I could have just signed an application, a zoning certificate, change of use, and then that was it. They were gone, and I didn't have to do all this and that packet, but I don't know if I could see that being bad if you don't have someone who, cares or has, well, I hope has scruples, something like that in this position. I don't know if you'd want to give them that ability, but there may be times where if a scenario like that exists, we would want to look at that to stay, as the gentleman said tonight from, I think it was Mr. Burke said, it's nice that we even have this process as it is. I guess some places don't have this. The informal concept review being this in this instance. So if that's something we want to look at, we will be doing a comprehensive zoning amendment in the coming year to two. So a big portion of that is, how do we get more quality developments, right? How do we attract those people to come here? Well, usually it's by having not a process that's not too involved, right? At least a lower barrier entry for some things. Development like Stone Creek, obviously being massive, you have to have some of those plans, but maybe there's some like specific instances, what would be a case of a person who wants to do a business that's not really approved in B1, but they seem like, good people with a good business plan. Do we want to hold them to the same standard they'd have to for this, multi-million-dollar development when we're not even talking about the same area? That's something we probably want to start, I would like if we at least start talking about, thinking about, addressing. Does it necessarily have to be a 2-page application form with, stormwater calculations, with all this, if we're talking about one small, half-acre lot that I don't know. I don't know, it's something that just, I think we could serve our citizens a little bit better, I think, by having some areas where maybe, it's not PDB, like the same intense use as like a Stone Creek, but like, I'm just work with me on this one, but like a PD, like local B in a sense, like, at Galbraith and Pippin, does a PD going in there necessarily have to have a professional, designer, do stormwater calculations, stuff like that, just to receive our approval to get our stuff? I don't know. I have opinions on that, but.
Right. I know since I joined the commission, it's been brought up several times, a lot by Mr. Iona, that even our zoning code, we need to update. So keeping that in mind with what happened tonight here with Grippo's and Kroger, adding warehouse into the code so that way moving forward, if we had the same scenario, it meets requirements and there's another check and it doesn't have to come forward.
Cincinnati's code, not ours, are existing or at the time. We didn't have our own code back then.
Right.
Yeah, for the Kroger one.
Yeah, but there's been many
Sure,
things,
sure,
such as the landominium discussion we had
Yep,
last year.
yep, yeah,
We have mention of it, but it just kind of falls off the radar.
definitely. Our code does need to align with the comprehensive plan, Imagine Colerain. It really doesn't hit a lot of the initiatives mentioned there. We're working on that.
Right, so if you're ever bored
Oh,
and you
yeah.
just want to start updating the zoning code, that would be great
Well,
too.
that will come before you within probably year and a half, something like that, probably a year and a half. Try and get it done as quickly as we can. But anyway, I've taken up your time. Thank you, Commissioner, so much.
Okay.
That's all I have on number 9.
Okay, any announcements?
No, sir.
Commissioners, anything you'd like to share? Can you tell us what's going on by the old Kroger store with the facade being changed around?
That's gonna be a Ross Dress for Less,
What is it?
Ross Dress for Less store.
Ross Dress for Less, Plato's, Once Upon a Child.
Let's punch out, yeah.
Then the old Olive Garden? No, what was it there? The old restaurant's been torn down.
The old Olive Garden.
Oh, Olive Gardens, yeah.
So that was torn down. There's a mythical Culver's out there that everyone has said, but I haven't seen anything yet, so I don't know. But
Speaking of that, where's the Dairy Queen process? Is it moving along?
Yep, they got through, let's see, they got their zoning certificate in April. And now they're at the Hamilton County Building Department. They're probably through that, and they should be, they're projected to open in August.
Where is their location? Because the address there is Arby's.
3545 and 3547?
It's where the old
37?
Soshimoco
Yeah, it's right next to Arby's.
or Mexican restaurant was, that empty lot.
Right next
Just
to
to
Arby's.
the east
Yep.
of Arby's.
Okay.
And there's a vacant lot there. That's where they'll be. So they were approved to be. I hope they build there.
Okay, how
Gotta
do
get
we
my
look
office
for June 21st?
Sir, the next meeting, June 21st? Minor amendment should be in front of the commission at that point.
Okay, so there is a business item,
Yes, yes, sir.
okay? May I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Thank you for
All
your
in
time.
favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thanks, everybody. Good meeting.
Fun one.
Thank you.